Baltimore in November has a particular kind of gray, the kind that settles into the streets like a second skin, cold and quiet and indifferent. On a Tuesday morning, Aaliyah Washington pulled her battered bicycle to a stop outside a row of small shops on Eastern Avenue, adjusted the strap of her bright orange delivery vest, and checked her route list one more time. Aaliyah was 22, with locks pulled back under a knit cap, paint-stained sneakers, and a second-hand jacket that had seen better winters. She worked for a small local courier company called Quick Route, one of those gig jobs that barely covered rent but gave her the freedom to move, and Aaliyah always needed to move. She had 13 more stops before noon. The next stop on her list was Park's Corner Store, a family-owned convenience shop that had stood on the same block for nearly 30 years. The handwritten sign in the window still read open 7 to 9, 6 days a week, the same sign Mr. Park's father had put up when he first opened the place. Aaliyah locked her bike to a pole, tucked a small package under her arm, and pushed open the door. The bell above the door chimed. Inside, the store smelled like sesame oil and floor wax and that particular warmth that old shops carry, the kind that takes decades to build. Mr. Park was behind the counter, a lean man in his 60s with reading glasses perched on his nose and a clipboard in his hand. He looked up the moment Aaliyah walked in, and something in his expression shifted, just slightly, just enough. It wasn't an aggressive look. It wasn't cruel. But Aaliyah had seen it before, that quiet tightening around the eyes, the way a person's body angles itself toward the exit or the register, the unconscious decision to watch. She was used to being watched in stores. She had been watched in stores since she was 9 years old, trailing her grandmother through the aisles of a pharmacy on North Charles Street. "Package for Park's Corner Store," Aaliyah said, keeping her voice even and professional, holding up the small brown box so he could see the label clearly. "Looks like it's from a wholesale supplier, maybe a restocking order?" Mr. Park said nothing for a moment. He set down his clipboard slowly, the way people do when they're deciding something. "Leave it on the counter," he said at last, not moving toward her. Aaliyah placed the package down and pulled out her scanner to confirm delivery. That's when she noticed the other customer in the store, a middle-aged woman in a puffy blue coat, standing near the chips aisle, watching Aaliyah with open suspicion. The woman caught Mr. Park's eye and gave a small, meaningful nod toward Aaliyah. Mr. Park cleared his throat. "Can I help you with something else?" he asked, his tone making it clear he hoped the answer was no. Aaliyah finished scanning the delivery, forced a polite smile, and turned to go. But as she reached for the door handle, she heard it, the woman in the blue coat, speaking in a low voice that was not quite low enough. "You should call someone. These delivery people, they case the place first, you know." Aaliyah stopped. Her hand was still on the door. She let out a slow breath through her nose. She could have walked out. She had every right to walk out, to get back on her bicycle and finish her route and leave these people and their assumptions behind her. She had done it before, absorbed the sting, kept moving, told herself it wasn't worth the energy. But something made her stay. Maybe it was the cold outside. Maybe it was the way her feet wouldn't move. Maybe it was something else entirely. Aaliyah turned back toward the counter. "I heard that," she said quietly, directly, looking at the woman in the blue coat. "I'm a courier. I have a work ID, a logged delivery record, and a company uniform. I'm not casing anything." The woman opened her mouth, then closed it. Mr. Park said nothing, but he had put down his clipboard entirely now, and he was listening. The silence that followed was the kind that fills a room the way water fills a glass, slowly, completely. And then it was broken. Not by any of the three of them, but by the front door swinging open hard, the bell above it jangling sharply against the frame. Two men in dark hoodies walked in fast, with too much purpose. One of them already had his hand inside his jacket pocket. "Register. Now. Don't make a sound." The taller man's voice was low and flat, and the object pressing against the fabric of his pocket left no room for misunderstanding. Mr. Park went completely still. The woman in the blue coat pressed herself against the chip rack, her hand flying to her mouth. The second man moved toward the far end of the counter, blocking the back exit. It had taken less than 4 seconds. Aaliyah was still standing near the door. She was the closest one to it, the closest one to the outside world, to safety, to escape. The taller man hadn't looked directly at her yet. In that razor-thin moment, her mind moved very quickly. She did not panic. She had grown up in a neighborhood where you learned early to read a room, to calculate distances, to stay calm when everything around you is not. Without a word, without a dramatic gesture, Aaliyah slipped her hand behind her back and pressed the emergency contact button on her quickroute scanner, a feature the company had added after a driver was assaulted the previous year. The device sent an automatic alert to dispatch with her GPS location. Then, very calmly, she let her scanner fall to the floor with a loud plastic clatter. Both men spun toward the sound. "Pick it up," the taller one barked at her. Aaliyah knelt down slowly, buying seconds, keeping her movements small and deliberate. As she straightened up, she looked directly at Mr. Park over the robber's shoulder, a long, steady look, and then, very slightly, she cut her eyes toward the back wall, where she had noticed a silent alarm panel half hidden beneath a shelf of lottery tickets when she first walked in. Mr. Park was a man who had run this store for 30 years. He had seen hard things. And he understood. While the second robber was watching Aaliyah, Mr. Park shifted one hand beneath the counter, slowly, carefully, and pressed the silent alarm. 14 blocks away, at a Baltimore Police Department substation, a light blinked on. The first squad car would arrive in under 3 minutes. When the police cruiser pulled up outside and the lights began to strobe through the front window, the two men bolted for the back right into the arms of a second officer who had come around through the alley. They were on the ground before Aaliyah had taken 3 full breaths. The store was silent again, except for the distant crackle of a police radio and the woman in the blue coat crying softly into her hands. Mr. Park came around from behind the counter. He stood in front of Aaliyah for a long moment, and she could see that he was a man choosing his words with great care. "You stayed," he said finally. "You didn't have to stay." Aaliyah picked up her scanner, checked that the delivery confirmation had gone through, and looked at him with tired, honest eyes. "I was just doing my job," she said. And then she walked back out to her bicycle, pulled her route list from her pocket, and rode toward her next delivery, 13 stops, and a city that still had a lot of learning to do.